I think Jesus disguises himself as the person that you love the most so that you're not scared. Because I'm going to tell you what, once I saw him there, I was not scared whatsoever. And I thought that was very, very thoughtful of them to make that, like, they come. I don't know who, but they come when you die and they help you.
He was over by the door. He was floating, and he was colors. He was just this energy. It was just this aura, and then he went into a shape of a human. It was just no details really on the face or anything. It was just like a human shape, and then this face came, and I could see his face, and he said, "I'm here to help you," but he didn't. His lips didn't move, and I heard it, and it's like, okay.
I didn't know anyone, but I knew that they were friends or family, or they felt like home. It was like kids peering around the corner and watching and looking. It was like these little figures that were coming around the side of this wall or this opening and giggling and laughing. And they felt like home. That's where I was meant to be. That's where I was. They didn't look like anything in particular, and they certainly felt loving and caring and kind, but there was not the clarity of anything like that.
And as I was getting closer, I'm kind of zoning in on these 6 beings that are standing kind of like in an apex. And I'm thinking, I know these people. Like, I didn't know if they were aliens. I didn't know if they were, guides or goddesses or whatever. I just knew that I belonged with them. Some were taller than others. They were kind of massive. I kind of get the impression now that one of them is my spirit guide. That's very familiar to me now. At the time, I didn't know. One of them seemed more kind of like my relative, my grandmother, but they almost look like aliens to me, and that's the only way I can describe them.
I'm confronted by this person, or I should say entity, that this entity had a man's face, and his face had squares of every color skin tone, from black all the way to white, and his neck had squares of elements, and the elements that I was able to notice was one square was silver. I felt like I saw a square that was gold, and then I saw a square that looked like the bark of a tree. And from the neck down, he had, his body was made out of like a black, shapeless, formless blob that moved in a way that made me believe or think that he was able to make any shape or image that it wanted to at will with it.
And then at the end of the hillside, there was a cabin. And I thought it was odd to see a cabin in the middle of nowhere. And as I'm walking towards this cabin, a chief walked out. Very huge feathers, it was not even the way we see it on TV portrayed in history books. No, it was a very unique outfit. And he walked out, and I remember he just kept staring at me, and his eyes, the one thing I remember the most was his eyes, very intense look, just looking at me quietly. And I remember asking him, like, who are you? And he just stayed quiet. And the only thing he did was extend his hands out. And when he extended his hands out, I noticed he had holes in his hands. And I looked at his hands and I'm like, that looks very familiar. Where have I seen that? And I grew up Catholic, but the fact that at that moment it didn't dawn on me, it was weird that I couldn't figure it out. I was very foggy in the head. And I just remember saying, I feel like I need to trust you.
Then a voice told me to sit down on the bench. The voice was my grandfather, who had died a year earlier. And, you know, when your dead grandfather tells you to sit down, you sit. So I sat down on the bench. He sat down next to me, and he told me that we were going to have a conversation, and that he was just going to put the information into my head. I wouldn't hear his voice anymore. I think it was I don't think it was my grandfather. I do believe it was God talking to me. I believe that he was using my grandfather's voice so I wouldn't be terrified. I never did turn and look at him. I was afraid to look at him.